Thank you for joining us. My name is Jeff Morosky. I'm the Fitchburg DPW Deputy Commissioner of Wastewater for the City of Fitchburg. The purpose of this Zoom meeting is an informational meeting on wastewater's next combined sewer separation project, which actually got started at the tail end of November this year. We'll go round robin just to introduce who's on the call presently, and then we'll open up with some opening remarks by myself, and then I'll turn it over to Weston and Sampson, Wastewater's consulting engineer, to talk a little bit more about the project.
So I'll start first. My name is Tony Maressa. I am the sewer system manager here in Fitchburg. I will be the project manager in the city's end and the main point of contact for any concerns that come up and day-to-day construction issues with the project.
My name is Bernie Schultz, and I'm the Ward 1 Fitchburg City Councilor. And of course, I'm interested in the streets in Ward 1 that are going to be impacted. And there's about 8 of them from what I can see from the information that I received. So thank you.
I'm Paul Boschman. I'm from Ward 2 City Councilor. I have a couple of streets that will be impacted. And Bernie asked me to join the party, and I said I would.
Commissioner Bassonetto.
Yes, hello. This is Nicholas Bassonetto, Commissioner of Public Works. This project's in very good hands with Jeff Borowski and Tony Maressa. Just here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councilor Green.
Yes, hi there. I'm City Councilor Amy Green, and I'm joining in just to keep updated on this project in case we receive any phone calls from concerned residents.
Weston and Sampson team.
I'm Pat Cotton from Weston and Sampson. I'll be the project manager on the engineering side of things. We worked on the design of this project. We'll be assisting the city with construction administration services throughout it.
Matt Houghton. I'm an engineer with Weston and Sampson, and I will be assisting Pat with the tasks he mentioned. I was involved in the design and will be involved in the construction as well.
Frank
Carcapenti from Weston and Sampson Engineers. I am the principal in charge for the project.
Thank you, Frank. So with that, I'll open it up with just some basic information. The city of Fitchburg has approximately 147 miles of sewers, and before we started separating combined sewers, and we'll talk about what a combined sewer is just a little bit, we had about 24 miles of these combined sewers, and then we started separating them, and a lot of that had to do with the consent decree that we entered into with the US EPA and the Massachusetts DEP. The history of sewers in Fitchburg really goes back to the industrial age of Fitchburg in the late 1800s. And when sewers were first constructed, they weren't built the way that they are today. They were simply conveyances to transport wastes to the river to get it away from the populace. Same thing would be true for the industries to remove that waste that was byproducts of their manufacturing processes. That obviously created problems with the Nashua River as well as the communities downstream of downstream of the city of Fitchburg. The city ended up constructing a large interceptor sewer in the early 1900s, shortly thereafter followed by our very first wastewater treatment plant, which went online in October of 1914. And that plant functioned until we built the east and west plants in the 1970s. So I'll do a little screen share here just to illustrate what we're really talking about for a combined sewer. And someone confirm that you can see my screen.
Can't see it yet.
Not yet.
About now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the image that you're looking at is a combined sewer, and this beigeish color pipe is the piping flow path that sewage would flow in the pipes that are underneath the ground when we have nice sunny weather and it's dry. But when it rains out, more water gets into this pipe than the pipe can actually transmit. So these sewer systems, these combined sewer systems, were built with something of a purge relief valve that would allow surplus water that's more than the capacity of the flowing pipe to actually discharge into the environment. So these sorts of things, these are the 24 miles that we used to have in the city of Fitchburg, and right now we're down to about 8.6 miles, if I'm not mistaken. We're marching towards 0 miles, and by our consent decree, we're shooting to be 100% separated by the end of the year 2030. Before I turn it over to the Weston and Sampson team, there's just a couple important telephone numbers that I'd like to highlight right up front, and then we can touch base on this at the very end as well, just as a follow-up. We've got a project telephone number if any residents, constituents were to have project-related concerns. This is the project telephone number that's been set up by Weston and Sampson. That number is 978-548-4808. Now, we also have a emergency contact number for wastewater in case if someone were experiencing a sewer emergency. That's also an important number to share. That telephone number is 978-829-1900. And then lastly, the general office number for the DPW wastewater division, I'll give that number as well. That number is 978-829-1930. So with that, I can bounce over to our construction notice, and I can turn it over to Weston and Sampson to begin talking about the project.
Good. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Pat.
So attached, you'll see on the screen is a notice that'll go out to residences in the project area prior to when construction will be performed in front of their residence. I'll back up a little bit and mention the contact number again for the project. If you have any questions or if things come up, it's 978-548-4808. The construction of this project, the name of it is CSO 007 011 039 048 separation and rehabilitation project. The owner is the city of Fitchburg wastewater division. The engineer is Weston and Sampson. The contractor that was the lowest responsible bidder was J.A. Polito and Sons. The project cost in total is approximately $8.67 million. It's being funded through the Clean Water Trust through Mass DEP and EPA SRF program, which is a loan borrowing. It's paid back from the sewer rates. The duration of the project is approximately 2 years, with the notice to proceed. Start date was October 19th, so the end date is at the end of September in 2022. Jeff, if you could maybe move to the map. So on the right side of the map, when you're looking at your screen, you'll see that essentially it's the area between Chester Street and Beach Street, from Pratt Road on the north to St. Joseph's Cemetery on the south. And if you scroll over to the other area, it's the area between South Street on your west and Water Street on the east, from Maine on the north to Henry on the south. So there'll be construction completed throughout all of these project areas over the next couple of years.
So the working areas within the black outline that designates the project limits for both halves.
So as Jeff had stated before, construction has already started of the separation project. There'll be new sewers and drains constructed as part of this project. There'll also be trenchless sewer rehabilitation, lining of pipes, and rehabilitation of manholes that are defective. And the purpose of this project is to remove runoff into the sanitary sewer system and SSOs entering the North Nashua River. So this will help ultimately improve the water quality to the North Nashua and repair the sewers that are at risk of failure, which could lead to backups in people's homes. So we've had a meeting with police and all the players so far, describing the project areas. So we'll be in contact with them. There will be detours that are expected to occur on Clarendon Street, South Street, First Street, Nashua Street, Water Street, Crown Street, and Walnut over the next couple of years. However, there will be ample notification prior to this to the police and fire departments and also the residents if there will be any detours. In total, there's approximately 1.3 miles of new sewers and a half a mile of new drains that will be installed as a part of this project. And in addition to that, 3.8 miles of trenchless sewer repairs, as I had mentioned before. There'll also be some smaller excavations where Polito has started already. More essentially manhole replacements that are smaller, have a smaller footprint where a manhole is replaced and separates the combined system between the wastewater and the stormwater. Polito's construction yard is located at 50 Laurel Street, which is essentially at the intersection of Laurel and South. So if you drive by that area, you'll notice that that's where they have their construction equipment. The work began about 2 weeks ago and is proceeding as planned. They're going to work as long as they can, as long as the weather is favorable. They'll be taking a break from construction starting on December 23rd through January 4th for the holiday break. And then the work in the spring will be focused on Middle Street, First Street, Water Street, Nashua Street, Walnut, Crown, with the installation of new sewers and drains. And those will be very significant excavations. So I also wanted to mention that the DPW has the weekly look-aheads alerts that go out, that are sent out by the wastewater division. Tony Maressa gets those out. So that's the alert notice. It's also in the Sentinel, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yep.
And again, the telephone numbers. So in emergency, always call 911. And if it's urgent, you call the wastewater division at 978-829-1930. And if you have any informational questions concerning the project, you can call Weston Sampson's line at 978-548-4808, and we'll give you a call. Just leave a message with your name and address, and we'll get right back to answer any questions that you may have. There'll continue to be updates on the monthly radio segments. Again, I'll mention that the door notice that Jeff shared will be distributed approximately 2 weeks prior to construction in your area, so you have ample notification to contact anyone at the numbers that I mentioned previously, get any information about how you'll be impacted. Polito is a very courteous contractor. They do whatever they can to make sure that the project is going to go right. We've worked with them for a while, and they're an excellent contractor. So If you do have any concerns, they'll work with anyone to make sure the project goes smoothly. We'll also mention that we will be partaking in some of these ward meetings to let everyone know what's going on and updates to the projects, and other city council types meetings as noted. So that's a general summary of the project. There's a lot more to it, but I guess I'd like to pass it back to Jeff. And
Thank you, Pat. I'd just like to mention a few additional comments. I know that some of the councilors have questions, so I'll make these comments and then we'll open up the forum for questions to the councilors. Pat had mentioned that we'll be working into the winter and we won't be doing extensive trenching type of work during the winter. These will be mostly spot excavations for either manhole installations or manhole repairs. We'll be doing some trenchless, cured in place pipe rehabilitation of the existing sewers that are still have decent structural integrity but need to be rehabilitated. The radio segment that Pat mentioned, I actually have a monthly feature segment on the K-Zone with Sherman Whitman on WPKZ. It's the third Tuesday of any given month. 7:40 in the morning is the usual time slot. So I think Councilor Green had her hand up first for a question, so we'll go to Councilor Green first.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's involvement with this project and wanting to keep our community informed on what's going on. My first question is, are the notices being mailed to the residents of the streets in Ward 1 and 2 that are going to be affected directly in the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months timeframe?
Pat, either you or Matt can handle that one, how we go about distributing these notices.
Sure. So our resident rep who's on site with the contractor 100% of the time works with them, and the notices are distributed 2 weeks ahead of time to the door. They're not mailed. They're physically taped to the most accessible door for the homeowner to see, with all the information on it.
Yep, and we put one on every door. Many of these buildings have multiple apartments, so we make sure we put ample notices for all the residents in a building.
Okay, and just to be clear on the phone numbers, which you've provided at least 3 phone numbers for people to get in touch with any and every organization that's involved. When does it constitute? I know the emergency wastewater number was given, but I want to know or inform the residents when or what constitutes an emergency versus just a phone call, letting you know that, yeah, there's a backhoe at the end of the driveway digging up the street. What would constitute an emergency versus just a regular call to the general number?
That's an excellent question. We actually established this methodology early on in our consent decree work. We had to develop something called an emergency response plan, Counselor. And when we did that, the way we rationalized how to get a single point contact for someone who's experiencing an emergency. And what that usually means is someone is experiencing a sewer backup, or if someone would have visually observe a sewer overflow where there's sewage bubbling out of a manhole that's someplace in the city that they've actually seen, that would be another appropriate emergency.
Okay.
If they have a question concerning the project, can I get my car in and out? Our emergency vehicles are going to be able to get past the work. These types of questions would be most appropriate for the informational line. That's the 548-4808. That's the Weston and Sampson project line.
In addition, Counselor, I did want to mention that our resident rep will be on site as well, so he'll have a safety vest, as will all of the workers. So if anyone walks out and wants to speak with someone, COVID compliant, they can ask questions that way as well. So the work will always be supervised 100%.
Okay, am I following up to that? My next question is, on these list of streets that you've provided, and I thank you very much for that, are you going to finish all of one street before you move on to the next street? Or there may be several little mini projects happening on a couple of different streets at the same time?
Just for your benefit, Pat, I think what the councilor is referring to is the experience we had with CSS 4D, where the contractor had multiple crews going in different locations simultaneously. We were trying to hit a consent decree deadline date with that particular effort. I don't know that the contractor for this project has indicated that we'll have multiple crews going simultaneously.
He has not at this point. It's just one crew that will be moving from one location to another at a time. They will complete paving at the end of each week. If they anticipate a second crew coming on board, we will have a second resident representative to cover that work, and we'll make sure that everyone knows. But by no means will this be, it will be organized. Everyone will be notified. The disturbances will be as minimal as possible. Unfortunately, there will have to be some detours at some points, but it will be very organized in following the schedule. So we'll make sure that we get if there's a second crew to come out at any point in time, we will make sure that everybody knows.
Okay, and then my last question.
If I could just add to that, Counselor, this is Tony. So answering your question regarding the little mini projects, there will be some instances of that. So as of right now, the contractor's installing manholes, doing spot repairs. They'll be doing that work, paving, and then a couple months from now, the lining contractor will come in as a subcontractor to line the pipes. That won't be any digging, but there'll still be some disruption where they'll be handing out notices. There'll be, equipment in the roadways. But in general, that's a lot less intrusive than, ripping up a whole street to put a new drain, a new sewer. And typically that work, usually they'll only be working in front of your house for that one day, and then they'll move down to the next segment the following day.
This contractor also has a very good reputation about keeping a tidy work site. So I think both the residents and the council members would be happy to hear that.
Good, I'm happy to hear that, so thank you. And then my last and final question will be, how is the sewer separation project going to tie in with our bridge projects that are happening right on Water Street and the work that's going to be done there at the new central, or the Water Street, the Central Plaza?
Nick, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So we're actually we're coordinating with MassDOT because actually one of the outfalls for this project is with it's in the bridge abutment. So we've been hold on, sorry. Let me pull it real quick. So Jeff and Jeff is actually and Weston and Sampson have been coordinating with the MassDOT group on designing the sewer and the bridge together, so there's no issues there. The bridge project's going to happen like another 5 years probably. So our sewer project's going to happen first. It's going to happen way ahead of the bridge project. And also, I just wanted to add that Unitil has gone through and done the gas lines on all these roads. So you're going to get the similar sort of detours and road closures that we had with Unitil when they were doing Water Street and First Street and Walnut and all that. So Unitil has gone through. They'll be out of the way. We'll come in. We'll do the sewer and the drain lines. We're actually doing a lot of drainage work as part of this, and we'll be out of there way before the bridge project happens.
So we shouldn't have to worry about then seeing these streets come 2021 or 2022 with needing to be repaved if we're just going to then just have to rip them up again, correct?
Right. So we're not gonna. So that's why we let Unitil go in first, and then wastewater comes in. We're gonna do the drainage. That way we get the utilities done. Hopefully we can get if any water service lines need to be done, we can do those too, and then we'll pave the roads. That way we're all done with that. We don't. We would never pave it and then rip it up again. So we're very careful with that.
Yeah, and yes, and
Well,
thank you for that.
No.
I've gotten here at least.
Did you have any other questions, Councilor Green?
No, I'm all set now. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilor Schultz had at least one question.
Yeah, I got one question. I just, we have two wards involved here, Ward 1 and Ward 2. I'm just wondering, Patrick, if there's any, you give us any indication of which streets are going to be most affected during the winter, and then maybe you can let us know what's going to happen in the spring as well.
Okay,
We want to talk about our DPW alerts, where we'll comment on where we're working on a week-to-week basis in advance.
Well, I just thought tonight, if we have some of that information, so that if somebody's going to be affected right away, that maybe you could let the people know tonight that there's going to be certain streets that are going to be receiving a notice fairly soon.
I'll have to defer to Matt and Pat on that. Of course, we're recording this meeting, and this will become obsolete information if someone were to listen to this down the road. But in the near term, do we know where the contractor will be hopping to for work?
yes. So there was work on South Street at Laurel that was completed a couple weeks ago. Also on Henry Street, and coming up, there'll be work on Granite, another repair on Henry, Mountain at Henry, Fairbanks, Walnut, and then Brigham.
Yeah, I didn't get a listing for a lot of those streets, Patrick. I didn't hear anything about Walnut, Fairbanks, and Mountain Ave, and Brigham Street. Those streets weren't included. So are there other streets that are going to be affected that we don't know about in either of the two wards?
All the streets that are going to be that are affected are within the black outline area. To what degree will vary. Through the winter months, Bernie, it's going to be mostly small localized repairs. So installing manholes at intersections, doing small spot repairs. Well, they'll be digging in front of a house for a few days. And like Pat said, they've done Marion Street. I think next week will be Granite Street. And over near that area. Moving over to the Beach Street area probably won't be until later in the winter to do some of these smaller repairs. So again, throughout the winter, I mean, we'll make sure that snow plows can get through, all equipment will be cleared from the road, all paving, of the trenches will happen before a snowstorm.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's just that I was asking Tony because I see that, I got a listing of the streets, and a lot of those streets weren't included in the listing for the winter. I'm just talking about the winter now that, I'd just like to give people a heads up that it's going to, there could be some digging this winter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can put together a list of streets that could possibly be dug, but it's hard to say for certain, especially with the changing weather in the winter time. But like Pat said, we'll definitely hand out notices, at least a few weeks beforehand. So we can definitely put that together. Moving into springtime, for certain, we're going to start on Walnut Street. And when we say the springtime on Walnut Street, that's going to be replacing the whole sewer and drain on Walnut Street, down Water Street between Walnut and First Street. We'll be doing a new sewer on South Street, Clarendon Street, so that the real excavations that'll cause, disruptions on the main roads will happen, in the spring and going into the summer.
What month do you think that'll happen, Tony, as far as the spring goes? It'll be early spring or will it be later in the spring?
And it depends on the weather.
Yeah, typically it's around plus or minus, April 1st.
April 1st, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So there are a number of forums that we mentioned at the beginning of our introduction. The DPW alerts will let people know where we're going next week. We'll have updates on the radio station. One thing that was offered and wastewater hasn't taken up on this yet. It was offered that city departments can give like a bulletin notice at the beginning of city council meetings. So if we were to have something that we think is going to be particularly impactful, we can give a short, brief bulletin notice at the beginning of the council meeting as well. So we're trying to be transparent here. We're trying to be good communicators with the public. So we're also open to any suggestions or feedback you may have on how we can improve this process.
I guess.
I think those bulletins would help, Jeff, with the city council. If you have that information, that could be passed on, at least at the city council meetings.
Okay.
Maybe just as a communication.
Yeah,
Communication from the department.
from the department, yes.
Yeah, that way, well, after January, the new president will, read those first in the beginning of the meeting. And if they show up on the agenda, it would at least give the public who may have concern time to, call in or write in about what their concerns or questions may be.
Okay. Thank you for that. Councilor Boschman, did you have any questions on your part?
I do have a couple questions. The number one question I have is that with all the new rules the EPA is putting down on the city of Fitchburg, not only on Fitchburg, but other communities too. Are we working? I understand, Jeff, that we're doing a water source separation and that's your department. But we're also been mandated by the EPA for MS4 program. Are we going to be doing any kind of work on the MS4 program in these while we're digging up?
Well, MS4 is the separate storm sewer system.
Right.
So we are sort of would be the answer to that question because this project is entailing the installation of new drains. We're actually creating new drainage infrastructure, which is dedicated storm drainage infrastructure. Weston and Sampson can speak to any catch basin work, but wastewater is not in charge of MS4, the engineering division.
Yeah, I understand that.
Heads that up.
Yeah, Paul, to answer a little bit of your question is, yes, this is a combined sewer separation project, but a lot of the area we're working in is not combined sewer. So by separating these combination manholes, lining the sewer pipes, increasing some of the drain sizes, we can take credit for that work on, yes, it's being done under this CSS program, but it can also be applied towards MS4 requirements, things that look good for that permit. So anytime you separate combination manholes or, like we said, when you line the sewer pipes, you tend to reduce leakage from the sewer system to the drainage system. I think we've got an illicit connection. We're going to be disconnecting from the drainage system, putting that in the sanitary system. So we might not be solving all issues under MS4, but we're certainly making some progress towards some of the requirements.
Now, are we going to do in these areas that you have all in black, all in between the black lines? Are we going to also ask the question while we're doing the source separation about people pumping in their septic? I mean, some pumps into the soil lines. Are we going to get any of the neighbors involved in the neighborhood on that issue too, so we can eliminate clean water
So as part of what we've done, we're doing something similar to what we've done on past sewer separation projects. Is we'll also be handing out notices about the things you just mentioned, Paul. So private infiltration and inflow, which is sump pumps, roof leaders, foundation drains that are tied into the sanitary system. We'll be handing out notices, notifying people of what these sources of infiltration are, the effects on the treatment plant. But the important part of the notice will be that the city will help residents pay for these. If they have a sump pump tied in, we ask that they call us. And once that sump pump is removed, they can have a contractor come in, pay for the sump pump removal, and then the city will reimburse up to 50% of the cost. So it's a good program where you can get half the cost covered versus having to pay, for the whole removal out of your own pocket.
All right. No, that's all I want to make sure. I just don't want to see us digging up this year and next year and the year after. And then all of a sudden, 3 years down the road, the EPA comes up and they change everything on the MS4. And we got to go back and do the exact same work over again, doing new catch basins and changing the whole thing over. That's the only reason why I asked that question.
Also, to your point, Paul, I would suggest that if anyone would have any questions about that, they could contact the Weston and Sampson project line, and the field representative could make an appointment with the person and take a look at their basement situation or whatever it may be that could fit the bill for this type of situation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Well, if no one else has any questions, we'll close it here. Hopefully, if someone has questions in the future, they'll be able to pull up this recording and get some good information to start, and then they'll be able to call someone to get some answers. So I want to thank you all personally for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Jeff, for chairing the meeting.
Yes, thank you. And before you go, will you be able to make those maps available to us?
Yes, in fact, I can personally email you this notice. That the map that you're looking at is actually the reverse side of the construction notice that Weston and Sampson put together for us.
Okay.
So it's a single 2-page PDF, Councilor Green, and I can email you that. I'd be happy to send that to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, send it to all of us, Jeff. That would be great.
Absolutely, will do.
Yeah. There'll also be 2 4-foot by 8-foot project signs that will be going up, one in the Clarendon Street area and one around the South Street, Water Street area, like project signs. So cars driving by or people walking by will see the project areas and, information about the project.
Are those the flashing DPW signs about our ward cleanups, the big ones?
Well, we will be putting those for notice for detours, like for when we dig on Water Street. But these are stationary signs that are printed on like a sheet of plywood that have,
Right.
that.
There's state or federal regulations called NUTCD to comply to for signage distances and from the work zone and so forth. I think what you're referring to is a programmable message board, and I'm not sure if we've designated something like that for this project.
Well, we talked about it in the pre-construction, and we're going to. I think we're going to have a couple. The police department was interested in them too, so we'll have a couple of those up on the main roads like South Street and Water Street when we get closer to working on those streets.
Great, thank you.
What else?
That's it. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
me. And Merry
Thank you.
Christmas to you.
Thank you all for joining.
Yep.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Yep.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Counselors, I'll see you next week for council meeting.
Yep,
Okay,
sure. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
bye.
Bye, Paul. Hope you feel better.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. Feel better, Paul.
Thank you.
Do you need some special tea, Paul?